Great. Okay, so welcome to the fourth evening of WNPJ Spring Assembly on Environmental Justice. I'm Dena Eakles, and I'll be moderating this evening. Environmental justice, big one. We're facing the greatest threats of our lifetime. The callous overturning of regulations that were designed to protect the earth and all of us, the reduction of funding, and the total disregard that most frontline people, Indigenous, Black, and other marginalized people, will continue to be the most impacted. There needs to be recognition that we're all becoming frontline, and we need to step up our resistance and our love of the earth. In 2024, WNPJ was awarded a grant from the Building Equity and Alignment Foundation for environmental justice work. The $25,000 grant was divided and shared with many of our environmental organization members, and a coalition was formed to help us stay connected, as well as a page on WNPJ's website. The coalition checks in once a month via Zoom on the second Tuesday at 2, and all environmental advocates are welcome. Tonight, we have representatives of a few of these organizations who are working tirelessly in our state, and I'm grateful for them to take the time, and to all of you who are here as well. Comments, questions, and links can be put in the chat. All information, including bios and organizations of the speakers, will be shared following our spring assembly next week sometime, after we've all recuperated. Please hold your questions until 8 o'clock. Thank you. And we're going to start with an opening from WNPJ board member, Kay Baum.
Thank you. And we have the wisdom of the great blue heron to guide us in our considerations today. This is a photo that I took years ago, and we have a lot to learn from the great blue heron. The herons protect the newly hatched and the fledgling herons in the rookery. First of all, they act in community by preparing the rookery, choosing the form of the nests, putting the nests close to each other. Interestingly, each year when they come back in Wisconsin, they're coming back, and throughout much of the country, the great blue herons return in spring. They don't necessarily go to the same, they hardly ever go to the same nest they had before the last year, but they go to the highest tree in the highest hill in the property, in the area. And they'll go to the same type of tree that they had in previous years. There's a lot of memory that's going from themselves to the next generation. So by having their nests close to each other, it allows an adult great blue heron, maybe two, to stay behind during the day and guard and protect all the nests of the rookery. They take turns. One day, one or two are there. The next day, it'll be a different one that are the guards. This allows the herons to fetch fish, typically, and some insects in the neighboring or not so neighboring waterways. I think if you're like me, the only time you've seen a great blue heron close up is when you happen to drive past a creek and you see it, and why it's called great blue bear, because we're seeing them from above. The picture shows that the underside is typically white, and it's just something to keep in, as a piece of information. But if you walk under their rookery, as us humans do in our state natural areas, we have to at least once a year go and pull the weeds out that are destructive to that land. We don't show in the DNR, does not show in its public photographs and so forth, or exactly where the great blue heron rookery is, because we're not encouraging people to be bothering them by being up there every day or something. But if you do walk under their rookery because you have to pull the garlic mustard, you cannot help but hear their very strong and convincing voices that they want you to leave. And they will sweep down toward you. But if you keep moving your job and move on, they'll be satisfied. The great blue heron, this is the part that I think is so convincing, and why I consider this a statement, a heartfelt statement about our care for nature. And that is, we need to follow the way the heron families do, and that is to teach their young to fly and fetch food. They teach their young ones how to do that, but above all, they pass on the ethic of the community as a whole is protecting its most vulnerable. You may, the adolescents in Wisconsin do not, many of them now, do not see much of a future. Many of our young people are dying from gunfire, from overdose, and from hanging themselves. I wrote this when the farmers of Wisconsin, there tended to be a number of young people who took their lives at the time when the farms that they grew up on were not managing. My first letter to the editor as a high school student was something that my father and I had talked about, and that is the farms around us were unable to stay on the farms. They had to sell the farms because they couldn't pay the property taxes as they were at that time, gauged according to the value of the land if it was sold. And so if you were near a city, it was very hard. Many lost their farms. But it took us, it took a long time. It took a couple decades. But with people working together, we got that changed. so that agricultural land was then, from thence on, was, and it could be agricultural in the sense of maintaining the plants, so the what was best for the environment, and their property taxes were therefore reduced to follow those new agreements. But that took people working together, not just, it took non-farmers to recognize the importance of that. We need to thank each other and encourage each other to work for safety, health, the functioning of communities, and the continuation of our environment. And we'll hear so much today, this evening, about what it takes for us to work together. We have to speak to each other in strong and convincing voices, and to make the changes that need to happen, and to avoid the terrible changes that are happening to our environment right now in the ways that our own administration is making it worse rather than better. I want to close by just saying that from time to time, think about the life of the great blue heron and how that heron is passing on the ways of care for the land, care for all the other creatures, and reminding us to do so also. Most of all, I want to thank each one of us listening here today to work together toward more connected communities for the sake of the people and the earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Kay. Thank you very much. And now we're going to hear from forestjahnke. He's with Sustain Rural Wisconsin Network and the Crawford Stewardship Project, and he helps keep environmental education and community alive and well in the rural parts of our state, and I'm really grateful to his work as well.
All right. Well, thanks for that, and thanks for that beautiful opening, Mary Kay. We're unfortunately still living through another wave of the next farm crisis right now, and access to land, and the issues have not gone away. So there's an abundance of work for all of us to do here. Thanks everybody for being with us. Like Dena said, I kind of wear two hats. One with Crawford Stewardship Project, which is our locally based nonprofit organization here in Crawford County, Southwest Wisconsin, driftless area just south of Dena there. And I was born actually here in the barn at Dancing Waters Permaculture Cooperative. I also have a life in Oaxaca, Mexico, with my wife, who is still down there. We'll be coming back soon. And yeah, and the other hat on the state level is Sustain Rural Wisconsin Network, which is the coalition of grassroots groups like Crawford Stewardship Project, who are dealing with CAFO issues, concentrated animal feeding operation, industrial farming, large volumes of manure, and all the attendant risks that come with that. So yeah, I guess on the Crawford Stewardship Project side, we've done a lot of environmental justice work through, I believe, really helping to foster other organizations and nodes of activity to get started and enabling the people most affected by the issue to form their own group, helping them integrate into local decision-making processes, connecting them with the relevant networks and people, giving information and studies and all the good stuff that's out there to support groups of people uniting for some cause or other. So we've actually helped 15 different organizations launch in the last 18 years. And I think that's been basically one strategy I really wanted to share here today as a way to keep growing our capacities as small groups of people and small organizations, probably with small budgets, who have grand goals to do many things. And our vision is always, that the people on the ground should be the people leading it. And we support as we can. And one of the ways that we also wanted to support the struggle early on, Crawford Stewardship Project was one of the co-founding organizations of Sustain Rural Wisconsin Network, recognizing that after we tried to stop our so far one and only CAFO in Crawford County, and that ended up going through anyways. It was right after the Doyle administration passed the livestock sighting law and stripped away local control from concentrated animal feeding operations sighting. And we've been monitoring it since. We have tons of information. It's a great example of why these industries are inappropriate for this sort of karst landscape and all the sensitivities we have here. Sustain Rural Wisconsin Network has been growing and changing over the years. Currently, we are not a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We've gone through phases where we were nothing legally, and then we had a fiscal sponsor, which was Crawford Stewardship Project for a time. Then it was a Socially Responsible Agriculture Project, an amazing organization doing similar work at a national level on the CAFO front. And then we dropped that basically because we preferred to be a looser coalition of people, not be under the same administrative strictures and have to spend our time and energy on that. And it frees us to work a little bit more in the electoral realm, which those of you who work for 501c3s know that there are certain areas that you just can't touch legally. So currently we've got sort of three concentric circles of leadership in the Sustain Rural Wisconsin Network. We have a listserv. I'm going to post in the chat here link to the website. You can check out our legislative campaign there that I'll talk about in a second. So we've got our listserv. We have what we call a leadership group, where we have monthly meetings with leaders in individual communities, staff from different organizations. Midwest Environmental Advocates gives us the legal updates, and we brought in other coalitions and organizations over the years. And then we have a central steering committee that basically sets the agendas and helps facilitate things so that we can have productive conversations. And I'm technically the president of that, although I've decentralized things to the point that that's pretty much in name only. Because I grew up on an intentional community where we do things by consensus, and so hierarchy feels weird to me, especially when I'm put at the top of it. I will, with my remaining time, launch into a little bit of what we're doing right now with Sustain Rural Wisconsin Network. Like I said, I just dropped the link in the chat. for you to find more resources on that. But essentially our goals for this legislative session, which we are in the beginnings of and is a 2-year process essentially in Wisconsin, is to raise Madison policymakers' awareness on the harmful effects of factory farms and factory farm gas, operations ordinances as an effective solution. And we can talk a little bit about what operations ordinances are, and that there are legislative threats to local ordinances and that we need to stand up for local control. The Republicans who control the legislature claim to believe in this and are actively pushing legislation to strip local control from wind farms and solar farms and all sorts of things like that. So we're going to take them at their word that they value that and say, okay, and concentrated animal feeding operations. And so I think the operations ordinances has really been the tool that we have kind of focused on and centered around in the last couple years as a way to do a little policy jujitsu around the livestock sighting law, which essentially stripped away local control from the siting of one of these operations in your community. You can't, even if 90% of the people don't want it and your town board doesn't like it, if they cross their T's and dot their I's, you cannot say no straight out to one of these operations. However, we are authorized as local communities and townships, as long as you have village powers, to pass basic ordinances regulating the operation of such facilities. So you can say, very well, there's the state regulations, and also you need to consider road damage and mass mortalities events. What are you going to do with all those pigs if you have to euthanize them all of a sudden? And a fire safety plan. Are there enough local fire departments to put out a fire if your barn catches on fire? Or are 80,000 hogs going to die like did last year in Texas? Considerations for local property values, biosafety, biohazard plan, all of the things I just listed, groundwater quantity monitoring. Is there enough water to supply the needs for this operation? All these sound like perfectly normal things that a business of this scale should be taking into account. And you may think that they are regulated. They are not. None of these are under the DNR regulations. It's only groundwater, well, not even groundwater, it's only water quality that is basically the foundation of the DNR regulations. And even that is focused more on maximizing nutrients for agronomic value than actual groundwater protection. Although even if we were doing that, we'd be in a better situation. So it's a great tool to basically try to account for the essential considerations that your community might want. And Dena and I have talked about how these could potentially be applied to other industries outside CAFOs, although so far it's only been done around CAFOs in Wisconsin. The first one was actually 7 years ago, maybe more than that now, in Bayfield County. And then since then, they've more recently been passed at a township level. So real grassroots level. The push has been, from Trump voters to Harris voters to, all sides of all coins. People who drink the water are concerned about these things. That's what it comes down to. And that's, we have to set aside whatever differences we have and work with the people we have. So if you're interested in getting involved in the legislative campaign at all, like I said, there's lots of resources. Drop the link in the chat. There's a form you can fill out, and then people will follow up with you and get you in your grouping with your legislator and try to set up meetings, try to make the pitch. Lots more information about biodigesters, operations ordinances, all of that. If you're interested, I believe I'm probably coming up on my time, so I should probably wrap it up here. But yeah, I don't know if we have time for questions now, or we'll take that as the
8
panel.
o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Forrest. And I said earlier that these are hardworking folks, and you're going to find out just how hardworking as they all tell us what they're doing. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And one of the most important reasons to have this kind of gathering is that we can all learn about one another and what we are doing so we can find ways to support. So up next is Britnie Remer of 350 Wisconsin. She's been invaluable resource to WNPJ's environmental activities. And she'll talk about line 5 and any other engagements of 350 that she wants to cover. Britnie.
Thanks, Dena. Hi, everyone. Just heads up, I am at the tail end of recovering from COVID, so I might cough or I might need to stop and take a drink while I'm talking. I apologize if my voice is a little crackly tonight. Yeah, so I really just wanted to give kind of an update on line 5 and the situation and what's going on with that. And I actually wrote out exactly everything I wanted to say, so I didn't forget, just in case I had some brain fog going on. So I'll start just by going back like 6 months or so. So back in September, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources released its final environmental impact statement regarding Enbridge's proposed Line 5 reroute project in northern Wisconsin. And exactly 1 week prior to the release of the final EIS, the U.S. Army Corps public comment period closed. Some of you may remember that we actually were able to get 150,000 individual comments opposing the reroute during that period, which was amazing. 130 advocacy and faith groups, 200 businesses, 22 health organizations, 140 health professionals, and over 60 tribal nations joined the call to shut down Line 5. Currently, there are several different legal and regulatory situations happening simultaneously regarding Line 5 in both Michigan and Wisconsin. Here in Wisconsin, the Bad River Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa is in litigation with Enbridge regarding Enbridge's trespass on the Bad River Reservation. This case currently sits in a federal appeals court in Chicago and is awaiting a decision regarding the June 2026 shutdown order. From there, it's expected that the case will go back to the district court with Judge Conley, who originally ordered that shutdown. And in November, although there are more permits that need to be approved through the DNR and the Army Corps, the DNR did announce the approval of most of the permits for Enbridge's Line 5 reroute, including the wetlands and waterways permit. Excuse me. The Bad River Band has challenged the Wisconsin DNR regarding their decision to permit the Line 5 reroute. And additionally, 350 Wisconsin, alongside League of Women Voters of Wisconsin and the Sierra Club, represented by MEA, Midwest Environmental Advocates, filing jointly with Clean Wisconsin. I know that was kind of a mouthful there. There are a lot of us involved. We have separately challenged the DNR's decision as well. And in December, Midwest Environmental Advocates announced this legal action. A day after that, the Wisconsin DNR informed the public that Enbridge's Line 6 had a toxic underground release of nearly 70,000 gallons of oil in Jefferson County on November 11th, which was literally just days before they had approved the permits. So this spill happened prior to them approving the permits. And the statement didn't come out until a month after the incident happened. And there was actually earlier this week a town hall that was held in Jefferson County with concerned residents and representatives from the DNR and Enbridge, and majority of the residents who participated in that expressed extreme concern There's a really good article. I think that it was on WPR that folks can look up and read about that. So last month, in response to the lawsuits filed, the administrative law judge who was assigned to the case, Judge Angela Chaput Foy, issued an order to extend the stay on construction for the Line 5 reroute, which the judge determined was necessary to avoid, and I quote, significant adverse impacts to the environment. So this means that construction on the reroute cannot proceed until the court case is resolved. At the moment, right now, there is a pre-hearing conference scheduled for Monday, March 31st, so just around the corner, during which a more clear timeline for this part of the legal process will be determined. And that, that was public knowledge that's been publicly released. That's not a public input opportunity, though. This is just a pre-hearing conference between all the parties that are involved. So there is a lot going on, and there's also kind of nothing going on at the same time. There's not a lot of opportunity for individuals or, the public to kind of get involved in this legal or regulatory process at the moment. We went through some really big comment periods and had amazing turnouts. So we were kind of doing some brainstorming and trying to figure out what we could do to keep the momentum going and to provide organizing opportunities for people who want to keep fighting the Line 5 pipeline and spread the word and let people know what's going on. So 350 Wisconsin, along with some other amazing organizations across the region, have launched a project to raise awareness of how the Great Lakes are threatened by the climate crisis and fossil fuel infrastructure like the Line 5 oil pipeline. Lovingly named Fish for the Future, it's a powerful and inspiring region-wide project that was created to unite and energize the movement to shut down the Line 5 oil pipeline. People from across the country and the world are coming together in pursuit of the world record for origami fish, shining a light on the importance of protecting the Great Lakes. And we are inviting every single one of you to be a part of it. Not only will this effort showcase our shared commitment to protecting the Great Lakes, it will and already has generated excitement and provided a source of joy and create a sense of community at a time when many people feel disheartened and divided. We will be reminded of the beauty of the natural places we're fighting to protect and the power of collective action, and that we can achieve big things when we work together. Not to make it seem intimidating, but we have 18,304 origami fish that we have to fold to break the record. So I am going to put a link in the chat that has a form that folks can fill out if they are interested in participating. You can fill this form out, and I will send you all of the information and resources that you'll need to start folding fish and to learn more about the project, and anything that you might need if you want to host an event or spread the word in your community as well. And I've been working on folding. Here's a little fish that I folded. Been working on folding a ton of them. So we have a pretty good dent in the number already. And, like so many different age groups of people can participate in this. We have, school age kids, we have middle-aged folks and older folks participating. There are a lot of really great events that are going to be happening. I have Nicolay College in Rhinelander who's like extremely excited about this idea, and they have an origami fish station already set up on campus. Yeah, so people are just getting really excited about it. And, I think that kind of tapping into, although, it's folding paper, but tapping into like the kind of cultural significance of origami and what it means and where it comes from, and learning more about that and pairing it with, this fight that we're all in together to protect the water and protect the Great Lakes. I think it's a really powerful thing. And, it gives us kind of this, not just a, like I was saying, a sense of community, but something positive and happy to look forward to at the moment, that is really generating excitement and interest around something that is, not so great. The Line 5 pipeline sucks. I have a lot worse things to say about it than that, but it's generating this interest around something that's not great, but we're doing it in a positive way. So yeah, I think that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for staying together, keeping it together. I know you're not feeling all that well, but and thanks for this offer for people to do the fish. And I just think that's an incredible little thing that we can get out there and get some younger people too interested in it. I think it's wonderful. So thank you, Britnie, once again. And now we're going to hear from Guy Reiter, anahkwet. He's a traditional Menominee who resides in the Menominee Reservation, and I think he will be addressing saving the Porkies and the rights of nature and anything else that he wants to speak about of importance, which I guess is everything, right? Guy?
Oh, well, so I went and thank you for giving me the opportunity here to talk a little bit. Anahkwet Nitekem, Wapasha Nitotem, Kashitna Nitski Wakin, Waiwanan Maoni Wayako Saitua, Nakato Manuich Kikitim Mokamane Witnessin, Mashikdayum, or Matno Mane Witnessin, Waiwanan Katanin, Maoni Kako. In it escapes me in a chaos I'll patch. Pamatasia Mashik Miskoso and Maoni Nature Matna Manewak Maoni Kayas Mamache Tawak Mashewanani. So I just wanted to say a little bit, that language there that I was speaking is not a foreign language. It is the original language of this land here in Wisconsin. This land is from, that language is from this land. Just want to, remind ourselves of that and never forget, the way this country was taken and the relatives, the indigenous relatives that are still here, still speaking their languages. So in that introduction, I basically introduced who I am. My English name is Guy Reiter. My real name is anahkwet. I suppose if you ask a language speaker or somebody that understands our language, they'll be quick to say that name anahkwet means cloudy skies. But if you ask me, I'll say it means handsome and really good looking and brilliant. At least that's what I've been told. People have also said I had a really good radio face. So I don't know. I don't know what that means. But I wanted to just share a little bit. And again, I appreciate Dena and all the help here and giving us the opportunity to, giving myself the opportunity to speak a little bit. There's a lot to say, but I'm going to try to make it a little bit more of a bite-sized portion here. But I wanted to also just hope we can take a moment to appreciate those sopomatic cook, those beautiful maple trees that are in the process of flowing that water through their veins now here. And it's such a sacred time here for us as Menominees and as Indigenous people of this area. A lot of us are collecting that sap now and making that delicious sugar and syrup that so many people like and enjoy. And I just want to make sure we appreciate those trees for their work and what they're doing. That process of getting syrup goes back thousands and thousands of years for us Menominees. There's a story of how it came to us and how it was given to us. And in that story, one of the biggest teachings in there is teaching us how to work, I guess, for something. And I've always loved that story because it just talks about how you know, at the time when it came to us as a people, our people were allowed that sap and allowed that syrup to burn because they weren't taking it serious, and they got taught a bit of a lesson, and now we got to work for that sap through that story. And it's a really, really good reminder, I guess, to think about for myself and I'm sure others, that it is, you know, anything worth having is worth working for. And it's in that work that is where the beauty lies. You know, I know a lot of people can agree, I'm sure, with the statement of there's always something to do, and you know, there's an opportunity to get burned out almost in this work. But I feel like there's so much good involved, and every day if you take the time to at least put yourself in creation here and appreciate this beautiful life we have in this beautiful earth, you know, it gets a little bit lighter. I could probably go on and tell you and let you know how many how many times in the in the many nights, in the many days, the many weeks, the many months, and the many years that of working on behalf of this beautiful environment, but also just working in our community here. How many little times, you know, there's so many in my head where I can think of where you know, maybe it was just a little gesture from a young person, or maybe it was a, you know, a kind word from an elder, you know, that reaffirms your drive and your passion, you know, and I think of those things often in my life. And there was a one particular time I'm thinking of right now is I was pushing back against a sulfide mine called a Back 40 mine. They were trying to put in on the Menominee Indian, or I mean on the Menominee River, and that's the creation story beginning of our people is at the mouth of that river. So we were pretty adamant about pushing back against it, and we, as I'm sure all of you organizers know, there's a lot of work in something like that, and you know, there's a lot of things you got to do and think, and it's a nonstop thing. It's a complete reaction sort of position you're in, and you're trying to do your best to make sure you're doing things right. To make a long story short here, I had a grandmother that helped us put together, Grandma Josephine Mendamen, who does the Mother Earth Water Walk. She helped us put together this water walk that we walked from our reservation up to the mine site, and it was like 126 miles. Um, during that, and but also you know, just doing all the other things that I was doing and organizing a big walk like that, you know, plus walking and, you know, trying to lobby and trying to do all these things. I was pretty tired at the, but I you know, I just kept moving, kept going, and she had seen me and she had said, "Nephew, I want you to get in my car." And she said, at first I thought, of course, I was in trouble, and I thought I was going to get an earful of something maybe I did or I didn't do, but she was really kind and compassionate with me, and she gave me some of the best advice. That some days, even when it still gets tough, I think about it. She just basically had told me, you know, that she can recognize that I was getting tired, and she reminded me of who I was walking for. And she had said that, you know, nephew, she said, you're walking for all those ones that can't get up here and walk, all those ones that maybe are in a hospital bed or in a wheelchair, or for whatever reason, you know, they can't get up here and walk. She said, I want you to think about them as you're out there. She also talked about how, you know, I was walking for my ancestors and walking for my descendants, and walking for all the fish and all the animals and all these things. She just went on and on with this story, and by the end of it, I felt like I could probably walk to the moon, you know, or around the earth 3, 4 times. It felt like as much as I was motivated. But she had said something to me after reminding me of that, just saying, you know, nephew, she said, I want to make sure you remember to be like water. She said, you know, if you get if you continue to flow, she said, and if you get stagnant like water, she said, it'll, like water grows dirty and it gets bacteria in it. She said, and it can kill you. She said, so I always want you to, be like water. And I didn't really understand entirely what she meant at the time, but as I've gotten older and as I've, come into those moments where, you feel like want to give up, or you feel like you want to walk away, I hear her voice, and I'm reminded of who I'm walking for and who I'm working for. And it's such an amazing gift to give to yourself, to be able to stop for a few seconds out of the day to breathe, to see this beautiful world that we live in, to appreciate all these things that are here, because at some point, not too far in a distant future, a lot of us will be spirits. We'll no longer be able to physically see this world and touch this place and see those beautiful faces. And I just think it's such a powerful, powerful gift. And I hope that you guys will be able to do that in your lives. But I've been working a lot on rights of nature lately. Probably in the last 5 years, I've really taken it pretty serious and work with an organization called the Rights of Nature of Wisconsin .org. And we've been the big vision is to change our state constitution, recognizing the rights of nature. But we've also done a lot of county resolutions, changing the way we see this environment. I'm sure everybody, if you're not necessarily involved in environmental justice on the front lines, I'm sure you can understand that our system is broken, and these environmental laws are not designed to protect anything. As a matter of fact, they're actually designed to allow these things to happen, and we wouldn't have gotten where we are if they were in the had the right frame of mind. So we're trying to take this approach with our rights of nature work as a indigenous philosophy, as trying to follow our ancestors' words and their wisdom when it comes to our relationship with our earth. And there's been some amazing work that's been done so far, and over in White Earth, they sued the state of Minnesota in tribal court for violating their rights of Menominee, their rights of wild rice, because the state gave Enbridge a permit to pump like 4 billion gallons of water, and that was going to threaten their wild rice over there. So they were able to sue them because they had this law in the books. And there's lots of amazing things that have come from that in other areas. And the Sauk Seattle tribe up in the Northwest actually sued the state of Seattle because they had a rights of salmon law. And the dam that was located there on that particular part of the river where the Sauk Seattle tribe is stopped the salmon from naturally migrating. So they sued them in tribal court, and then actually sued them in city court, and actually won that case. And they're in the process of dismantling that dam. The other thing I wanted to just mention about it, so real particular, what I'm trying to do right now is trying to do something similar in the sense of getting a rights of sturgeon law passed on our reservation right now. Those sturgeon, in our language, they call them namal because we recognize the significance of them, and we recognize how long they've been here. That word kind of roughly translates to like a prehistoric fish, or like a really old fish that's been around a long time. And they're in our creation story, so we have a sacred connection with them. And they used to migrate up to our reservation on the Kashina Falls, and that was their natural spawning grounds. And in the early 1900s, they put up some dams that stopped them. They put a dam in Shawano and a dam on Balsam Road that stopped that migration. And we're gonna do something about it, I guess. is what rights of nature approach I'm taking. Not that there hasn't been things that have done about it. And I don't want to discredit anybody's hard work that in our community or around the area to recognize the injustice that was done to our people when those dams were put up. So I probably need to be reminded of time. So if I'm getting close, maybe just give me a thumbs up, and I'll kind of wrap this up. But the other, go ahead, Dena.
Oh, no, you're good. You're
Okay.
good.
So the other, so that's something we're working on, and I wanted to make sure you guys understood that on April 12th, we're doing our sturgeon feast here on the reservation in Menominee, on the Menominee Indian Reservation. So that's April 12th. Is it 12th? Yeah, I think it is 12th. I might have to double check that. I think it is the 12th, and I'll make sure Dena and you guys get the actual flyer. So that's an amazing time here on our reservations where we honor that beautiful fish and do lots of things here, and it's an amazing time, and I'm personally inviting all of you to come. The other part I wanted to just talk about in this whole thing is I feel like it's that understanding to take the time, like I said earlier, to put your feet on our beautiful Mother Earth and just feel that vibration and just listen and just be, there with her. That's such an important thing. I feel like in this fast-paced world, we don't do. A lot of our teachings and a lot of our ceremonies point to doing exactly that every day, and making sure that we're appreciating our lives. It's always easy to look in the future and easy to look in what happened, but sometimes it's very hard to stay in this moment and stay present. Hope you guys take the time to try to stay in this moment. And as you're hearing my voice now, I hope you can be here, truly be here with one another, truly feel the clothes on your body, and feel that beautiful air that you're breathing. And we'll be all right. We'll just keep moving together. We'll do what we can. Should fear no man or fear any of these things that they are trying to fear you into or scare us into. We just continue to stand together. We continue to move in compassion. We continue to move in love, and they can't break us once we stand together. And hopefully, you folks that maybe don't have a direct relationship with some of us Indigenous folks, reach out and connect with us, and let's do it together, and we'll stand. We're ready to go, ready to fight all the time. Oh, my man. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, and yes. Today I had to be on the land. I had to, and I totally agree with you. It's critically important. All right, so, and we can go a few minutes over, but we'll be fine. We have one more speaker, and that is Rob Danielson, and he also hails from the Driftless, and he's also one of the hardest working guys I know. And he's educating the need for all of us to move towards distributed solar. That's just one of his passions. And I know he also has a fondness for being on the earth, and I appreciate that. So, Rob?
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Dena. It's truly my pleasure to be able to be with you, group of people, tonight and make a presentation. Soul is a little bit different from a lot of groups in that most communities, most landscapes in our state are find out about major development proposals for their communities when the powers that be decide to go about and make a formal proposal. I started tracking going to utility meetings and tracking planning processes back in 2010, and I realized that it was extremely important to keep tabs on those things. And so our report to the organization every year sort of focuses on essentially a kind of state of the energy as it affects our lands here in Wisconsin. Soul is, I'm going to bring that up here and then get into that. Can everyone see that okay?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, wonderful. First, I'm going to, address some of the myths that are floating around about energy. Then I'll dive into some of the on-the-ground impacts that are coming from proposals and various plans. And then I'll conclude with what Dena talked about was the new direction that we can take that will help address these major considerations. Everyone must have heard at some point or another about this amazing influence of the so-called artificial intelligence data centers to create all of this overwhelming demand for power. If you read behind the headlines on this, first of all, you will notice that data centers in the United States only use about 2% of our electrical supply. So statistically, doubling this usage over 5 to 7 years will not create threatening power shortages. Utilities like to create problems so that they can build stuff. The facts of the matter is that Wisconsin electricity sales from 2001 to 2024 continue to be statistically flat, despite the fact that the population has increased 11% over that time. I'll talk a little bit about the reason for that. You've also probably heard stories about how the age of the grid and it's going to collapse, and we're going to have all of these supply line disruptions. But in reality, there are no overloads in Wisconsin's transmission system, experienced or projected by Wisconsin utilities in coming years. You can see the little dotted red line at the top representing our capability to generate power, and that blue line with the annual numbers is comfortably below that and will continue to remain below that. So the idea Wisconsin is extraordinarily high reliability. Beneath the headlines, there are a bunch of exciting news. I'll only touch upon a couple of them, but probably number one is the ability with our these aging network transmission lines, that when we rebuild them, we can use state-of-the-art conductors that will actually quadruple the amount of power that can be carried through our existing transmission lines. So when you put that together with the no demand for new energy, it is a much better solution for our landscapes. Unfortunately, as many of you know, utilities no longer make money by reselling wholesale power. They make money by putting new steel in the ground. They get guaranteed return on their investments and so forth. And there's no better example that I can think of this lust for new steel in the ground than the 12+ expansion transmission lines that have been proposed by Wisconsin by regional utilities in December 2024. The red lines reflect additions of the 345 kV transmission lines that we see, these humongous lines that we see along many of Wisconsin's interstate roads already. And then this lime green facility represents a 765 kV transmission line. If you have ever driven through Illinois, through the central part of the state, you come to a place in there where there are a host of transcontinental transmission lines that are these large steel grid structures. These are the scale of the lines. Indeed, one that is being proposed very close to our neck of the woods, Dena and Forest. What I've done here is I've taken the line diagram for this proposed line, which By the way, I've included the mention of the nuclear power plant that Dairyland has said that they are studying for siting at Genoa. But the magenta lines that you see here are actually just tracings upon the existing transmission lines. And by Wisconsin state law, the developers are first required to propose new lines on top of existing transmission lines. So you can see marked by the blue stars, the large number of recognizable communities that would be directly impacted by this particular expansion. The amount of expansion taking place in Wisconsin is absolutely breathtaking. I've taken for an example here the town of Bradford in Rockford County, Wisconsin, to chronicle what happens when a simple little process of a solar power plant being proposed, in this case in 2020, and it was put into operation last year. Followed by that power plant proposal were the 4 transmission lines that you see proposed here, the green and red transmission lines in this little community, a rural community with no real demand for power, etc. And then followed in last month with a natural gas power plant proposal in this same little rural town. So we have essentially a solar power plant capable of providing power for about 60,000 homes, and an added natural gas power plant with a far greater capacity of 200,000 homes. So if we simply combine the impacts of those things, we can see that the emerging utility district in the town of Bradford, who thought that they might be doing something environmentally beneficial, or actually contributed to a 200% net increase in CO2 emissions. So what is the status? I mean, that's the ostensible goal for all of this. What is the status of CO2 emissions in Wisconsin? The Wisconsin power-related CO2 emissions from 2005 to 2050 are pretty much on schedule, if not ahead of schedule. For example, Obama's Clean Power Plan, which was focusing on 2032, our CO2 emissions in Wisconsin attained that reduction goal in 2022. And without building any huge outlay of new power plants and transmission lines and such, we would actually be on trend to reach a 50% reduction in CO2 emissions by 2034 and nearly 100% by 2050 without a massive build out. And why is that? Well, adding renewable power plants is actually less effective than other known means. The U.S. Department of Energy, and as well as Wisconsin's Focus on Energy employee auditor, have determined that end user improvements, which include energy efficiency, load management, solar, battery storage, those efforts that are taking place without any really major incentives are responsible for a 2% decline in energy use every year, a 2% annual reduction in use. So when we combine that together with our very modestly growing energy use additions, that is why we see this flat line. This is why we see steady electricity sales in Wisconsin, which is quite amazing. And this is not what people generally talk about on the street, is it? Unfortunately, the added power plants that are being added so far are extraordinarily expensive. The Wisconsin revenue increases due to the addition of these bevy of power plants of all kinds in Wisconsin increased the utility revenue basically 6% per year over the last few years. So that if someone with an electric bill today in 2023, average electricity use of about $150 per month, just from the additional costs of those power plants would see a $272 electric bill in 2033 and upwards of nearly $500 per month in 2043. But dollar for dollar, electric customer investment in efficiencies, on-site solar, and conservation through focus on energy reduces 33% more CO2 emissions than building a utility-scale solar power plant. That is a finding that I reached by intervening in the Koshkanon solar proceeding, a fact that was never challenged by any of the parties. Here are some underknown realities of utility scale expansions. First of all, the topsoil with a solar power plant construction, the topsoil is completely scraped off and stored during the construction. So far in Wisconsin, less than 1% of the advertised pollination seedings that the utilities say that they make. Less than 1% of that land is replanted in pollinators. There has never been a solar power plant decommissioned in the United States since 1983. So it is extraordinarily likely that solar power plants will never be returned to agricultural land use, and because of the extraordinary rates they pay for rental and use of the land, that each of those parcels will be progressively owned by utilities over time. So that if you live in a township with a 5 or 6 square mile solar power plant in it, a very large percentage of the landowners affecting the policies and the discussions in that township will be public utilities.
Rob?
Yes.
Rob, I'm sorry. We did want to leave time for Q&A. Do you know how much longer your live
2 minutes. 2 minutes. Solar power, so there you go. Nauseogenic air pressure pulses from the extraordinarily large wind turbines are already causing families to move in Wisconsin. There is no such thing as a small nuclear power plant. They're modular, requiring at least 6, probably 12 modules. And utility planning that is on the board for Wisconsin can be examined by using this QR code and zooming on all your communities to see all of the power plants in the emerging utility districts around the state. So, are you fed up with the progress that utilities are making? Well, there's some good news in our own backyards. The cost of leaving the grid in 2025 for a house that has made efficiency improvements and using about 350 kilowatt hours per month can get a 12-year payback on that investment and save, about $18,000 or so over 20 years. A household that is using double the amount of electricity will also see a 12-year payback, and it's covering up my numbers here, but a large number of 20-year savings. And if you don't have a lot of cash, like most households, there is a resource now that one can use and monitor in real time one's energy use on one's smartphone. And there's a 3-year payback if you combine that $200 application with an investment in a high efficiency appliance. You can get that money back and still have $22,000 of savings because of the incredible ability of these monitoring tools to be able to help us identify and remove waste, which is really, Guy, the big issue with mining. It's waste. We don't need it. There are 2 bills, or actually 1 bill and 1 resolution that one can look into. Forrest had said that this bill would allow towns to have local control, to vote power plant proposals up and down for their jurisdictions. And finally, there is a joint resolution before the state legislature that basically says we think nuclear energy is fantastic. We need to develop the heck out of it and build nuclear power plants. If you click on these links here, you can call up your state legislators and let them know what you think about that. So you can use this code here and locate this document online. And I thank you very much for everyone's time.
Rob, as always, you have really whipped that together, that proposal, that whole thing. And it's so important. I've been trying to talk to people about the advent of nuclear we've been being programmed out here. You guys might not be getting the same information, but all the information that comes to us is about pro-nuclear, and we've been warning people about it. So, and the information that Rob offers and talks about can always be overwhelming, especially for my mind, but it's so important, and to be able to share it tonight so that people can at least start to glean what we're up against. Same with everything really that people have talked about, because a lot of the places that are being impacted are the rural areas, you know, the indigenous lands close to the rivers, all of these places, and you might, and the cities too. So there's a lot for us to stay together on, and that's what tonight was for. So I appreciate everybody. And we are going to open it up for questions, but before we shut the recording off, I just wanted to remind everyone, we still have one more night, tomorrow night, for this spring assembly, which has been phenomenal. If you haven't seen the other evenings, I recommend it as soon as we get the videos out there. And tomorrow night, John Peck will be moderating, and it will be anti-war, anti-militarism, and abolition. So with that, we can shut the recording. Thank you, everyone who's listening in here now and those who will be listening. And we'll go to Q&A.